24/7. 24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana. Oh, Afrika nakupenda sana.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear that Afrika nakupenda sana, you know that is it at that time of the evening where we are meeting here at the African Experience with myself, Dr. HLAMI Ngwenya. Today we are very, very excited, in the build up, to our celebration of the Africa Day, which is on the 25th of May. We have in our midst a very, very important, guest who's going to tell us anything and everything around the role of tourism as we look at, the Africa that we want and toward our Agenda 2063, which is the African Union agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Today, my co-host Mandla, it's not here. She might be joining sometime later. This load shedding will always, want to sabotage. But, we always say there is no load shedding form against us, that will prosper. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, to the African Experience with myself, Dr. HLAMI. I want to introduce our guest for tonight. Her name is Beulah Mosupye. Beulah, please welcome to the African Experience.
Thank you, Dr. HLAMI. It is a wonderful experience to be invited and to be on the platform with you today.
Yes, maybe just as a disclaimer, I have known Beulah for so many years. Our path, crossed, and we have done some work together. She's such a dynamic, person. There is a rich story behind her. Maybe let me start by asking, in a nutshell, who is actually Beulah Mosupye?
Sure, in a nutshell, it's not easy, but what I can say is that which gives me a sense of being. My people would say ke Mosupye Molot wa bo Makgwanya Setlhako wa kakadia leleme ba re senthuti boloyo nthuto bofeane. I come from a proud heritage of people that were steadfast in their belief in justice, in their belief in learning and education. And so if I were to say, who am I? Ke Mosupye Molot.
That is very, very beautiful, especially when you say you believe in justice. And I know with your journey, we will learn a little bit more about that, because you don't just only believe in justice, but also you want to actually make sure that, justice happens in different spaces. I can see we have, our loyal listeners. We can see Jolene Magani. Thank you so much. She's saying, good evening, the African Experience family. Thank you so much. I can see says Danisa Wakakosa. Good evening to you there. I can also see Makoma Mahapo. Yes, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. We are talking to our guest tonight. That is Beulah Mosupye. Okay, Beulah, I know you are a woman of many, many hats. There are so many things that you have done in your professional and career path, but also at a personal level. Just tell us a little bit more about your career journey and your professional journey, if I were to put it that way.
Sure, yeah. Dr. HLAMI, my journey many years ago started in banking. And within banking, being the kind of person that I am, that's always inquisitive about this or the other, I rapidly moved and worked in the personal markets and in the business markets. And the business markets were the ones that were quite interesting, as I got to learn a lot about entrepreneurship at that stage. I left banking and went to ICTs. And for some people, it's like from banking to IT, what is that? Well, in both instances, I was in sales and marketing. So whether it's in the IT space or banking, the principles are the same. And so I got to be exposed to the value and role of technology in growing businesses, in entrepreneurship. But also I got to work, at the time it was the advent of Black economic empowerment, post 94 environment. And I got to work for one of the early takers, when it came to Black economic empowerment, a company called Safika. And I moved from corporate, which was really wide at every level, and I moved into a technology company that was at the forefront of new technologies in the mobile space and other spaces. And it was Black owned, and I was surrounded by Black professionals. It was amazing. And I continued into different spaces, still always moving within the marketing, sales and marketing space. I've worked in broadcasting, I've worked in sports management. I've had my own communications firm where I mainly focused on public relations, including reputation and crisis management. Um, and during that course, I then also had tourism and
Wow.
environmental affairs as a
Mm,
client. And from there, from them being my client, they decided to recruit me because they were quite impressed with how I was able to articulate issues around transformation for the industry. And what was supposed to be a short stint in the tourism space ended up lasting me almost a decade before I
wow.
went back into consulting.
Wow. 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 I'm actually surprised. I know we spoke a little bit, but whew, these are really so many heads. I actually had to have my pen, so that I don't miss anything. It's quite interesting. And what I like about this kind of, many hats, it actually makes you so versatile. In most cases, people are so straight-jacketed. It's either you do, banking or you do IT and all that. But I see a well-rounded, person. You have skills in the banking. You did, personal, marketing, sales, ICT. You work in the corporate. You worked in government as well. You worked, in the areas of technologies. I mean, having somebody with these broad knowledge skills, probably it gives you a comparative advantage in one way or another. Am I right to assume that?
You are correct. I always say to people that in life, there is three key things that you should have. You should have your area of passion, and
Okay.
something that your natural talent gives an advantage in, and your qualification. And where those three things meet, you then have a competitive advantage. It's a space that no one else can occupy. And so when you look at my passion is in communication and development.
Yeah.
I have my qualifications is in business and in law. And I have and the experience that you put together gives me that advantage that there's no one who can present my CV and my passion and my
Yeah.
qualifications in the same mix and
Yeah.
deliver what I can. And
Yeah.
so in everything that I do, I find that I do have a competitive advantage. Is a space that only I can occupy.
Yeah, I love that. And I think if a lot of women could actually have that, where you have, this is your niche, and no one else could actually occupy that, this is the tacit knowledge. And I also know that you also have passions around the issues of gender.
Yes, Hlami, when you work in the different industries that I have, you get to observe one thing that is common, that the girls must operate at a certain level. Through my career, there was a point where I could not advance to the next level, and I did something which they didn't expect me to do. It was to go and ask why I didn't get the job.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was then referred to HR, and I did go to HR, and they eventually set me down and said, well, partly age, but secondly, you're a single woman. The people who got the jobs, you look at their profile, they're all men, and mostly married. There are some who are single, but preferably married men. And I was like, wow, I'm never going to win. So it wasn't because I wasn't capable.
Yeah.
Purely my gender and marital status determined whether I could move on or not.
Yeah.
And I became conscious already at that time that there are certain things which are just not acceptable. Surely merit counts for something. And
Yeah.
from that time, wherever I've been, I've always rallied around other women, supported other women.
Yeah.
I was fortunate when I was working in the ICT space. There was some really steadfast women who were mobilizing other women, and that's where I got to know more about the global movement
Yes.
of women empowerment. And so when
Good.
I moved into other spaces where I found there was no formation that was advancing gender equity, I quickly would establish such forums. And I did that
Yeah.
for tourism.
Yeah.
And so I continue in every space that I'm in to always lift the issue of importance in diversity, especially when it comes to gender, and
Yeah.
just trying to kill all those stereotypes that hold us back. And some
Wow.
of them, by the way, are stereotypes that actually we as women are the ones who are advancing them.
Yeah. Whew. I actually agree with you. In my personal space, I write, poems and all that. There is a poem that I wrote around the penalty of womanhood. So by virtue of being a woman, already you pay a penalty. And listening to your story, I it is, where people will not give you, what you qualify for just because you are a single woman. That is really, really interesting. But anyway, what I like about your attitude, you look at that and you don't say, okay, now what am I going to do about it? You see that challenge and say, what is it that I'm going to do to make sure that no one can actually experience, the same thing again? I can see some of our listeners are excited. I can see Jolene Mangani saying, yes, sir, thank you, Dr. HLAMI. This woman is loaded. She is an inspiration. Hey, she even, put, some hands, clapping hands like that. Thank you so much, Charity Mwamvuleni Mashele, for joining in. We are today, sitting with a very loaded and passionate woman, Beulah Mosupye, who is actually telling us anything and everything around, her journey. It is a woman of, multiple talents. Yes. So this is the woman that is really, really inspiring, us in so many ways. Maybe just to recap, especially for those who just joined us, Beulah worked in the banking sector. She's actually doing a lot in marketing. She worked in the ICT space. She also worked, in the broadcasting and all that. She's has expertise around the issues of communications and all that, but also has a lot of expertise within the tourism sector. And I would like us to get a little bit more information around her experience in the tourism sector. But before we do that, we're gonna take a very short break. And when we come back, Beulah is going to share with us, because she said she worked in the tourism sector, she worked for government for over a decade, but she's still a very important person in that space. So we're going to take a very short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue to learn more about what Beulah has to share with us, especially in the area of tourism, and she will give us some tips on what is it that we need to look out for if we want to venture into that space. What is it that we need to do? We're going to take a very short commercial break. Don't go away. We'll be with you shortly. Wow, wow. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the African Experience with me, Dr. HLAMI. Unfortunately, today my co-host is not around. We know we hustle as women. But tonight we have a beautiful and powerful, powerhouse, Beulah Mosupye, who's actually sharing a piece of her with us. She's sharing her journey. And before we went for the art break, we said we're gonna learn a lot about some of the work that she's doing in the tourism industry. Beulah, welcome back.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so what we want to hear a little bit more, because the theme for today, we wanted to see the role of tourism in the Africa that we want, towards the Agenda 2063. Share with us a little bit more of your experience within the tourism industry.
Thank you, Dr. HLAMI. So, if we go back a bit, when I joined government to work in tourism, it was from a tourism economy transformation perspective.
Okay.
And so one would be focusing on participation of Black people in that economy who hither to that point were existing more at the periphery. But as I got acquainted with the sector and its nuances, one of the things that became of interest was that you cannot change something that you yourself are not participating in, and the numbers don't lie. When you look at the numbers, South Africa at the time, we've improved. A lot of the tourism was inbound with people coming from Europe, from America to travel. And locally, it was mainly white families that were traveling. But there was a historical background to it. A historical background in that there were not a lot of amenities for Black people. I mean, we all know the famous Nkababa, and I still blame it for the scenes that we see on North Beach every year. But what interested me became that our participation in tourism, and what does tourism do for you as a traveler?
Okay.
Now, you travel a lot. I've had also, through the different jobs I've done, I've traveled. As a child, I was fortunate enough that I came from a family where during school holidays, my dad would take us, hop onto a train, go into town, visit the museums where you discover a lot of treasures. And as a result, I tended to find myself often being more informed about many subjects. And that's one of the values of tourism when it comes to us as Africans. Travel exposes you, it builds your knowledge, it widens your horizons. And
Yeah.
so when we talk of Africa that we want, apart from us learning about our own cultures, having a cultural exchange, it also expands our mindset as a people. And it is from this expansion of our mindsets and exposure where innovation is achieved. It is, and by the way, I'm not even sure I should be doing it. I always, whenever I talk, I always say to people, I will apologize upfront because sometimes I say things that people sometimes get a bit sensitive. But what we should appreciate, the nations where you see a lot of innovation, it is not just by chance, it's by design. It is those nations that have taken to the seas and to the skies and go into other people's territories. And by being exposed to other people's territories, they take what they've learned and build their economies on it. It's a reality. And so you start to see the importance of travel in our own development, the things that we want to conquer and recover from, as far as what history has done to us, those things will only happen when we travel. And so traveling and tourism, whilst we often want to see it as a privilege, for me, it's a necessity. It is a
Okay.
necessity
Okay.
in us recovering our memory of who we were before the disruption of our lives. It is about exposing us to start tinkering with our own mindset as to how we see ourselves and how we are going to build the next civilization, how we as Africans are going to contribute to the next civilization. So
Wow.
it is, for me, it is deeper than just counting bums on seats and bodies in beds. It's
Wow.
about rediscovery of who we are.
Wow. That is very, very interesting. It is amazing. But if there is a listener somewhere who is saying, yes, I would like to travel, but traveling is expensive, what would you say? Because I know that you also promote, locally, you promote for people to actually see what is actually happening in our surrounding areas. What would you say to that, person who says, traveling is for the rich people?
Yeah, you see, one of the things that I am currently advocating for is access based on affordability, that we need more affordable travel and accommodation. Because one of the things that you do find is that based on how travel and tourism is marketed, people only know of the five-star hotels.
I see.
And everyone believes that they have to fly and it's so expensive. However, travel starts even in your own neighborhood. There's a lot of history in our own neighborhoods. At the moment, we're not taking care of the history, but we need to start there. We need a simple project such as there's the history of the schools in your neighborhood. Who's going to curate that? People, and I know I'm already now jumping into people who want to be in tourism. Who is going to curate that knowledge about the history of the schools in your neighborhood, the history of the churches in your neighborhood? You have to do it, and out of that, create experiences that you will participate in, and other people can also find it interesting to come into your neighborhood. It's about going to your towns. It's about visiting the next province. Some of us
Yeah.
have not even visited other provinces, the Northern
Yeah.
Cape. It is a beautiful province. I say you get to go to the Karoo, you go to the Namakwa and see the beautiful flowers. At
Yeah.
night, you get to travel the galaxy and have a galactic safari.
Wow.
So there's a lot that is affordable locally. You can
Yeah.
drive, you can ride. There's a lot of ways to get there. There are guest houses, there are B&Bs, there's camping, camping sites. There are camping
Yes.
sites which are under 150 Rand a
I
night.
know, I know, I know. I've done that a lot,
Yes, yes. Let's
our kids.
normalize camping.
Yes, our kids used to go to scouts together, and I would do the camping and maybe go on the trip to nowhere with my kids. And like you say, I will pay, close to nothing, but still, enjoy that. I like what we are saying because you are giving the notion that, traveling, it's not only for the money, you can actually travel within the neighborhood. But I also like the notion of creating content where you are encouraging people to begin to tell stories within their areas and all that. Maybe let me tap your brain on that. I remember you once shared with me, I think there is a village somewhere, I think in the Northwest. Uh, yeah,
Free
a
State.
traditional, is it in the Free State?
Actually, there's
Yes.
two. So one of the things which initially, and I'll be honest, initially I disliked the notion of cultural villages,
Yeah.
because often you come to a cultural village and it's a very artificial take of what our culture is about. Um, and so I dislike them, and I would always say when you go to France, everywhere you go in Paris and all the various places, Champagne and all that, you experience French culture. You don't have to go to a particular village to see that.
Yeah.
My view was changed, however. I still believe we still need to Africanize in many ways, but my view has changed when the cultural experience was packaged in the most beautiful, sustainable way. And this
Okay.
is at Basotho Cultural Village. It's in the Golden Gate Nature Reserve in the Free State next to Kwakwa.
Okay.
Now, a living museum that tells you about the Basotho culture, the design of the village, from the way it's designed and the different people you get to interact with. You are given a historical perspective of the Basotho culture, and you live there with a better understanding why things are the way they are.
I
When
see.
did the blankets get introduced into their
I
life? And
see.
it's actually a very it is linked to the loss of land, believe it or
I
not.
see.
There's a
Wow.
lot of things
Wow.
that we do which
Mm,
actually are linked to historical battles.
yeah.
But you also start to see the versatile nature of
Mm,
our people and how we also adapt. But it's a beautiful story. You get to ask questions to the different people who are part of the Living Museum. So you get to learn and leave there enriched, absolutely
wow.
enriched. I've taken my children, I've taken many people to that place, and
Yeah.
everybody loves it.
Wow, I'm actually listening to this and I'm like, okay, I don't think I have seen something like that in the area where I come from. Probably, maybe we should be thinking of, the Tsonga, cultural
Yes,
village somewhere,
that have a
where we
living
can
museum.
Yes, where we can brag about our color blocking and many things that we do and our Belandi and all that. That is very interesting. I think you're giving us an idea. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, you are at the African Experience today. I'm talking to Beulah Mosupye. I can see some of our listeners. I see Doli Mhlari. Thank you so much for joining on Facebook. Good evening. I see Virginia Mangani. Good evening, family. Thank you so much. I can also see Shalati Makuvele. Good evening to you. And Tsakani Mabasa. Oh, our loyal listener there. Thank you so much for joining. We are talking to Beulah Mosupye. Is a woman with your multi talent. She's a multi-talented woman, and she's sharing with us her passion around ICT, the passion around tourism, and many other things. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take another commercial break, but when we come back, we're gonna hear a lot more about what she does. There is transformation that she kind of did, and I would like to tap her brain on that. And if you have any questions around issues around tourism, please put it on the chat and she will be able to respond to those questions. We're gonna go for another commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue talking to our beautiful guest. Let's go for a short break. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you are at the right place. We are at the African Experience with, HLAMI Ngwenya. Today, unfortunately, my co-host is not around, but I'm sure she's listening wherever she is. Whew. We are talking to a beautiful guest. Her name is Beulah Mosupye. For those of you who have just joined us, you have missed, the half an hour of talking to this lady, a lady with multiple, talents, a lady who has so much passion around, tourism. When we talk to her, she brings, the issue of tourism in a different way that we never thought about it. She was sharing about, some of, the cultural villages that she has visited and really inspired me to say, maybe we need to be thinking about the cultural village around, for the Tongas and all that. Wow. I can see our listeners are there. Okay, so let us hear a little bit more about, your story. Beulah, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here, Dr. Hlami.
Okay, now we talk innovations. You said when people travel, they tend to broaden their scope, their worldview, they can innovate better and all that. In your career, you took a very bold step where you actually left your job and went back to school. Just tell us a little bit more about that. What inspired that? What was happening in your life at that time, and why did you take that bold step?
I served government for a good 10 years, and I always say to people, when you have an opportunity to serve, you should. There's a lot of good people in government that are making things happen. When things don't work, we often very quick to criticize and forget the many men and women who are there who actually are doing the right thing. As I said initially, my time in the public service was supposed to actually be for a short stint. But joining a department that ended up being on its own, and one then getting involved in the establishment of that department as a standalone and various programs, it took a bit of time. So it was fun whilst it lasted. But I had to get back to my passions. And one of the things I realized as one was getting more involved in the development of the travel and tourism sector from a public sector perspective, looking at the regulations that impact travel, issues of visas, issues of inclusive participation, all of these issues actually revolved around the legal environment. If the legal environment is not right, it becomes very difficult to thrive within it. And that's why often people get frustrated that transformation is not happening the way it should, or this or the other thing. But all of this, including issues of economic development, they require a conducive environment, a conducive regulatory environment for that to happen. And so I had a lot of questions which always took me back to the law. And so I decided my next thing would be to augment my knowledge with legal knowledge, and to actually go to the source, go back to school and study the law and get to have a full appreciation of the law. I have enjoyed it immensely. It has empowered me in many ways.
Yeah.
It has definitely re-inspired me to stay the course as far as issues of women emancipation is concerned, and using the law, because the law is broad, and so you need to
Yeah.
choose your area of expertise,
Yeah.
of interest. And I find myself that all of the years combined, whether in technology or whether in tourism, all of it combined, all roads lead me to where I am, where it's still about working, using the law to contribute to the emancipation of women. One of
Okay.
the projects that I'm now currently involved um, in labor mobility within the
Wow.
BRICS community. And,
Wow.
there is a lot that we're doing within the BRICS space. We are hosting the summit later on in this year.
Yeah.
And the BRICS Women in Business have taken on the task to look at labor mobility and education. When I
Wow.
started, I talked about the value of travel and tourism in opening up one's perspectives and
Yeah.
empowering people, driving innovation.
Yeah.
So all of those things that I have done put me in a space now where I'm working on a project to establish a labor mobility and education center
Wow. Wow.
focused on the BRICS community.
Wow, wow, wow. Look, I think you didn't represent it very well, because when you talk about, people going back to school, some people might be thinking that, oh, you just did a short course here and there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not what she did. She actually went back, just elaborate. This is not a short course,
No,
right?
I did the full LLB.
It's a
I, I,
full,
I, I did not even ask credit from my business degree.
yeah.
I did the whole from 101.
And how many years did it take you?
It was supposed to take 4 years, but it took
Yeah,
me. I had the COVID disruption and a whole lot of
yeah.
things happened, so it took me an additional 2 years.
that's fine. But I mean, for me, ladies and gentlemen, just think about that. And you were not young. You were not young when you took that decision, but it's because of seeing some of the challenges that you saw, and you say, you know what? I don't want to consult lawyers. I actually want to be the one who is being consulted. Wow. When I listen to that story, I say to myself, wow, wow, wow. Women are actually investing in themselves. You appear to me as somebody who understands the value of investing in yourself. I have a listener here. I think maybe it's your sister, Tabang. Tabang says, I want her to know what a powerhouse she is. Always ahead to time, brilliance personified, always truly inspired. May God bless her abundantly. Wow, 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 wow. And I really, really agree with her. It's really, really a powerhouse. Just listening, to things that you are sharing, it's very, very interesting. But one thing also that I like, especially some of the things that you shared, is that you see opportunities. You don't want to go alone, but you want to take people with you. You want to empower other women. You want, to empower young people and all that. Okay, so tell us a little bit more again about some of the inclusivity, the inclusiveness of the space, especially the tourism space that you are actually working on. What do you want to see for you to say, now the industry is inclusive enough?
Yeah. No, so with the work that I'm now focusing on, which is within the social tourism space, Ida mentioned the issue of affordability. Now, when we talk social tourism, there is issue of affordability as part of access, but you also look at inclusive participation in terms of host communities. Most of the time, you find that, especially around our big attractions, your national parks. You've got the cableway there, where they're in Cape Town. Surrounding host communities tend to be spectators and do not get to be participants who benefit from those economies. And so with social tourism, what we are encouraging is firstly showing people, giving people the tools of curating their own knowledge. When I was talking earlier about looking in your own environment and identify those opportunities of telling stories. It can be around the history of your schools, your churches, the food that you eat. It can be anything. Create stories and reasons for people to want to know you better. So it's
See.
about learning how to dress up our communities, how to dress up ourselves. When you wake up in the morning, you put in the best outfit depending on how you're feeling. You put something on, and that's what tourism is putting on that outfit for your community, for the spaces that you're in, so that you are able to sell that story to people. And so with social tourism, we look at that as host communities participating and also providing stories, authentic stories. We don't need
Yeah.
to be telling stories about other people. We should be telling stories about ourselves.
Yeah.
Some of the most enduring travels I've had is where I've gone into communities and got to learn more about that community, not learn about another community in that community. And I
Yeah.
hope you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of authenticity gap that we still have as South Africa. And the rest of the continent, and purely because we have based our tourism design on people coming from outside and not
I see.
necessarily from people traveling locally. Now that is changing. And that is one of the gifts, I will put it this way, that's one of the gifts from COVID. It has made Africa and South Africa to start saying, we need to look closer to home for people to travel.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're starting to see also new products, new eateries come up.
Yeah.
The amount
Yeah.
of new eateries from townships coming up, it is not by some chance. It's because now
Yeah.
you have more Black people traveling. And so
Yeah.
when you start doing that, you start to see a change in the makeup of your tourism offering. So from a
Yeah.
social tourism perspective, that's what we are doing. advocating for. And we will actually be hosting the first social tourism conference for Africa at the
Okay.
end of August. And we are
Wow.
taking the conference to Dinugeng in Hammanskraal. And we
I
were
see.
very intentional of taking it to Hammanskraal because we want to expose our guests to community level interaction where
Yeah.
they get, once you have the Dunugeng as the game reserve 5,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
big 5 game reserve, on its doorstep there's Hammanskraal, which has rich heritage, and so we will be exposing our delegates to all of that, so they will
Wow.
have Africa in one day type of experience. And
Wow.
with that, what we
Mm.
want, the message is one, Dr. HLAMI, that we need to also direct resources in the direction that will ensure that more people get to travel and more people's perspectives are broadened through
Yeah.
travel. And one of
Yeah.
the ways which is used extensively in Europe, and you see it in America through your summer holiday and your summer camp programs, is providing vouchers to families, to young
Yeah.
people. One
Yeah.
of our projects will, after the conference, will be targeting young people that we should at least make sure that every child under 15 at least gets to go to camp once in their life before they
Yeah.
leave. At the moment,
Yeah.
we know it's our kids who go to privileged schools who get access
Mm.
to that experience.
Mm.
That
Mm.
experience must be for every South African child. And before they turn 25, they should
Mm.
at least have crossed the equator, either going north or south,
Of
so that
South. Yeah.
Africans can get to appreciate each other's cultures and
Yeah.
become a more united and integrated continent.
Wow. This is so beautiful. And I think what you are sharing resonate a lot with what this program is all about. We call it the African experience because we are saying Africans need to tell their stories. And we move away from, all the narrative where we see Africa, where Africa is portrayed as, poor and I don't know what, and politics and whatnot. So what we do in the show is really to actually tap on, those hidden gems that we don't look at, and yet it's actually part of our narrative. And I like what we are saying, where you are encouraging people to start, generating content and tell their stories their own way. Because if you don't tell your story, who will? I actually like, that. Uh, I maybe just keep us, informed about, that conference that you are talking about, so that when people want to actually join and attend, they can actually be able to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, you are with me, Dr. HLAMI. We are at the African Experience. Our guest today is Beulah Mosupye, a very diverse and versatile person. If there is one thing that I'm learning, from you, is that, if you are passionate about something, go for it. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your resources. It doesn't matter. Just go for it. I really take off my hat for you for having that courage to say, I'm in a wrong space. I need to venture into a new area, but I need to equip myself. And you went back to school. I don't think many people can actually be able to do that. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much for sharing, this experience. We're going to take the last, commercial break. When we come back, we want you to share a little bit more about what you think about the role of, tourism in the Africa that we want, especially in the build up, for our African, day that we'll be celebrating in the next, 2 days. But we also want you to share with the listeners what are some of the things that are in the pipeline that you're working on. And lastly, we want you to share with the listeners, especially those listeners who might be interested, to start, something in the tourism, space. What advice would you give? We're going to take a last commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue having a conversation with you.
Are you ready for the ultimate dietary powerhouse? Look no further than Masana Dietitian's Nutro Boost. Our scientifically formulated low GI food is designed to give you the boost you need to fuel your body and reach your health goals. With NutriBoost, you have the flexibility to enjoy it as a high-fiber cereal or a satisfying shake. Simply mix it with water and indulge in the mouth-watering flavors that we have to offer. But that's not all. NutriBoost is packed with essential nutrients that are beneficial for your overall well-being. Enriched with 20 immune-boosting vitamins and minerals, it's a convenient and effective way to support your immune system. And here's the best part. NutriBoost is gluten-free, egg-free, and high in omega-3, making it suitable for those with dietary restrictions or allergies. Need an energy boost? NutriBoost has you covered. It's high in energy and protein, providing you with the fuel you need to power through your day. Whether it's a busy morning or an intense workout session, say goodbye to midday slumps and hello to sustained energy with NutriBoost. Try it today and experience the difference. For orders or to become a distributor, contact us on the following details.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, this is the African experience. You are spending some time with me, Dr. HLAMI. We are talking anything and everything around tourism. We're talking with our beautiful, guest here, Beulah Mosupye. Beulah, let us, pick again the conversation that we had, just before the break. Now, in 2 days to come, on the 25th, it's going to be Africa Day. We're celebrating, Africa and whatnot. What do you see as a role of, tourism in the Africa that we want?
The role of tourism in the Africa we want is integration, appreciation of the multiple cultures that we have. The role of tourism is melting down the borders. People often talk of the legal borders, but those will always be there. But what breaks down the borders in our heads is when we travel and experience the different parts of the continent, the different landscapes. It enhances how we see ourselves. When I talk to people, I say, I don't come from a country of 55 million people. I come from a continent of 1.2 billion people.
Wow.
Now you have to take me seriously.
Wow. So
shifting such perspectives is very important. We need to raise our children and our young people to understand that they come from a continent of 1.2 billion people who have a stake and should have a voice in what happens in the world.
Yeah.
That's what tourism is going to do for us.
Yeah.
Tourism is going to enrich our identity. It's going to embolden our voice. And when we go on any stage and claim the identity of I'm an African, it happens when you're able to travel the length and breadth of this continent, interact with other Africans, not as suspicious of each other, but with respect and dignity across the table.
Yeah.
Because, if we are to use Ubuntu Botu as an analogy, there is no West without East, no South without North. So that is what tourism does for us.
Yeah.
Tourism helps us with the Africa Free Trade Agreement. I always say when people talk of the Africa Free Trade Agreement, they always talk about the movement of goods, as if people will not be moving with these goods.
I see. Yeah.
At the heart of the Africa Free Trade Agreement is people. We talk of economic growth and success, and the three pillars of this is capital, is technology, and people.
Yeah. The human capital. Yeah.
So we are not talking only of moving goods. We are talking of moving people.
Yeah.
moving people in ways that they will become an asset
Mm-hmm.
to countries,
Mm-hmm.
exchanging knowledge and skill,
Mm-hmm.
exchanging technologies, exchanging our mineral wealth, our intellectual wealth.
Yeah.
Just you talk a lot about me, and now I must talk about you. Interacting with you has opened my mind so much around issues of agriculture,
Yeah.
around this continent and its capabilities.
Yeah.
And imagine if that kind of exchange happens just between us,
Mm.
sharing our experiences in travel. Can you imagine when every other person does that, what it means for
Yeah.
us within an
Yeah.
African context? We become
Yeah.
that much more powerful.
I see. Wow, wow. You know, I like the way you're unpacking the issues of tourism. You unpack it in the manner that I didn't think about. You introduced us to a concept of social tourism. And I know a lot of people know tourism as we know it, but you really expand it. And as we talking, because my passion also is in the agri space, we also have what we call the agritourism. So you can also use agriculture as an entry point, to getting people, to see and understand what we do. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. With urbanization, a lot of us have lost a sense of where food comes from, and
Yeah.
what agrotourism does,
Mm,
it bridges that knowledge gap. It
mm,
is also sometimes the way a lot of people find their new passion. You find a
mm,
lot of people who go. The city of Cape Town, Stellenbosch, is very good. So Stellenbosch
mm,
tourism is based on agrotourism. The
mm.
winelands are
The
agriculture.
winelands. Yep. Yeah.
There is agrotourism that's
Yeah.
happening there. People
Yeah.
go to Stellenbosch, discover wine, and discover the farmer in them. That's the
Mm,
power of agrotourism. And you
yeah.
start to see how you put tourism in any environment. You put it in education
Mm,
through
yeah.
study tours. You
Yeah.
put it in agriculture.
Yeah.
You totally expand your world.
I
And
see.
that's why, in Sepedi ba re, lesogana le sa eteng le nyala kgaitsedi.
And we also have a similar saying in Tonga. Yes.
And what it says is a simple thing that when you don't travel and don't get exposed, you're gonna marry your
Yeah.
sister or you'll
Yeah.
marry your brother.
I
And that's
see.
one thing you don't want to do. So
Yeah.
exposure
Yeah.
influences your choices in life.
Yeah.
And so travel and tourism does that for the mind.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking, bringing also in the agri space. I'm thinking if there is somebody who probably in the livestock, industry and all that, the 1st of June is World Milk Day. So that person could actually think about, starting maybe agritourism around educating people around,
Milk.
issues of milk and all that. Yeah, is that the thinking? So there is
Absolutely.
a lot
Have a
of
milk
creativity.
festival. You can have a milk festival in the same way that you have in the Free State, you have the
Yeah,
Cherry Festival.
yeah.
It's a big festival just on
Wow.
cherries and what you can
Yeah,
do with cherries. You
yeah,
have the alcohol, you've got soaps, you've got many things. You can
yeah.
have a milk festival. And people
Wow.
can come and see how a cow is milked.
I
What can you
see.
make out of milk? How
Yeah,
do you remove the fat? What do you do with the fat? What are the many byproducts out
yeah.
of that milk?
Wow, wow,
It's a whole
wow,
university
wow. So
around milk.
basically, you are saying, people have to be creative enough and take advantage of what is happening because the World Milk Day is coming on the 1st of June. It's a global celebration. And as somebody who's in the dairy industry, could actually take advantage of that and bring the element of tourism and educate and maybe have the cheese festival or the milk festival and whatever and link it with that global celebration. Is that the kind of thinking that we want people to begin to think beyond the narrow understanding of what tourism is all about?
Spot on, Dr. Hlami. Spot on.
Wow, wow.
Um,
I hope.
Having people open and instead of going to the usual shopping,
Yeah,
if there's a dairy farmer down the road,
yeah,
you take your kids there, go see
yeah,
what happens. Where does
yeah.
this milk come from? What are the different varieties?
Wow.
Um,
And
and out of that experience, I was fortunate enough. We're running out of time. Well, one of my tourism experiences as a child was visiting a relative who had a farm, and we
I see.
spent and it happened to be harvest time, and so we
Yeah.
got to spend some interesting time on the farm observing harvesting taking place.
Yeah.
Even today, what I learned during that time
Yeah.
has made me look like a genius in special
Yeah.
space.
I see. No, because I mean, what you are saying, I could imagine even schools, the people who are, schools and all that, they can also be proactive and prepare, maybe organize an excursion, you know, to a dairy farm during that, World Milk Day and all that. So opportunities are endless. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, I know when we are having fun, time is just against us.
Right.
Before, maybe with the last, minutes and all that, I want you to give advice. Let's say there is a listener somewhere who want to enter into the tourism space and they don't even know where to start. What advice would you tell them?
Sure. One thing to know is that in anything that you do, tourism can fit in.
See.
You can be a teacher, you can be, as we spoke now, you can be in agriculture, you can be in transport, you can be a taxi driver, and
Yeah,
you can pivot your business to become a tourism business. It's about creating experiences.
yeah, yeah.
My advice would be um, at the moment, digitization is impacting our lives immensely. Now, digitization is either going to take away or it's going to give you power. And I believe that the more people accept it and learn, they're going to empower themselves. And why am I raising this? If you want to start in tourism, one of the things is content development.
Yeah.
Look at what is it in your space that would be interesting for someone to know, and start creating content around that. And from your followers will come people who then you can host as
I
your
see.
guest,
I
and they
see.
become the people that give you the testimonies that bring more people.
Wow.
If you're interested, you can go on the South African tourism website, it's southafrica.net. There is a course called how can I forget now?
We'll get it. We'll
It's
get it
about
and
knowing
share.
South Africa. It's
Yeah.
escaping me now. But
Yeah.
there is a course you can do. So I think it's South Africa's speciality, something like that. But it's about getting to know South Africa. So you it tells you about the different attractions around South Africa, and you get a small test to test your knowledge. So it's a way of also getting to know South Africa as a
Yeah.
country,
As a
and it
country. Yeah.
introduces you nicely into tourism. So that,
Wow.
together with your special interest, can
Yeah.
set you on your way into starting a business.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Beulah. The time, an hour is not sufficient. I'm sure, a lot of people want to learn more. We could invite you some more. One last question that I want to ask you. Okay, so yeah, southafrica.net, yes. So if people want to invite you as a speaker to learn more and where can they actually contact you?
They can contact me on 067 207 8083.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for spending some time with us. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we had the time for. This is the African Experience with Dr. HLAMI. I want to say thank you so much to our technical producer, DJ Messi. Thank you so much for making it, so seamless. And thank you so much for Pastor Strike and the Bold Moves Radio team. Thank you, and see you next week, same time. We will be profiling, Kenya. If you want to know anything around Kenya, next week will be the date. Thank you so much, and thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.
gentlemen, here it is.
Streaming 24/7. 24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana, oh Afrika nakupenda sana.